Republic didn't fall because of its enemies, not because of the Separatists, not because of Darth Maul, not even because of Palpatine. All of that came later. The Republic began to crack when its own heroes slowly stopped seeing each other as human beings. And the disturbing part, most of the Jedi never even noticed, because the deeper you look into the final years of the Republic, the more uncomfortable a pattern becomes. People with doubts were ignored. People with trauma were used. People with questions were removed. And somewhere along the way, the Jedi Order became so focused on saving the Republic that it forgot what it originally existed to protect. This isn't a story about good versus evil. This is the story of how a system slowly loses its own humanity, and how the people who trusted it the most are the ones it breaks. Plo Koon, the moment Ahsoka realizes how cold the war has become. Long before Ahsoka leaves the Jedi Order, something happens that, in hindsight, reads like an early warning sign. During the Malevolence Crisis, Jedi Master Plo Koon disappears in battle. His ship is destroyed, communication goes silent, no one responds, and almost immediately the tone of the conversation shifts. Not, how do we get him back, but is the search even worth the resources? Plo Koon isn't just any Jedi, he's a council member, a general, one of the most respected Jedi in the Republic. And yet, the system immediately begins calculating the strategic cost of his possible death. Too risky, too expensive, too unlikely. The war moves on. And this is where it gets uncomfortable, because the Republic is suddenly willing to write off one of its finest Jedi because the rescue mission doesn't look statistically efficient enough. Only Ahsoka refuses to accept that. She insists on continuing the search. Not because it's logical, but because she sees Plo Koon as a person, not as a lost statistic. And ironically, that decision later saves thousands of lives, because the search mission delivers critical intelligence on the Malevolence, the massive warship of General Grievous that had been annihilating entire fleets. The Republic wanted to abort the search. Ahsoka saves one person, and in doing so, helps save countless others. Because she refuses to give up on a single human being. And maybe that's the first moment it becomes visible as just how cold this war has already made the Republic. Ahsoka Tano, the moment loyalty becomes worthless. Years later it happens again, except this time, Ahsoka is the one being sacrificed. A bomb explodes inside the Jedi Temple. People die, the Senate demands answers, and suddenly, suspicion falls on Ahsoka. The evidence looks strange from the very beginning. Witness statements contradict each other. Clues appear far too perfectly placed. And yet, the Jedi Council almost immediately begins distancing itself from her. This is where the story gets truly uncomfortable, because almost no one seriously tries to find out whether Ahsoka is actually guilty. What the Order tries to do instead is manage the political damage. The Republic cannot lose its faith in the Jedi. And suddenly, Ahsoka realizes something far worse than the accusations themselves. Her loyalty to the Order was unconditional. The Order's loyalty to her was negotiable. The Council expels her. Not suspended, not protected, expelled. Then they hand her over to the Republic so a military tribunal can decide her fate. A teenage Padawan who dedicated her entire life to the Jedi suddenly stands alone before a system that drops her the moment she becomes inconvenient. And while nearly the entire Order stays silent, Anakin Skywalker is the only one still searching for the truth. Not the Council, not the Republic, her master. He eventually finds it. Barriss Offee was the real culprit. Ahsoka is exonerated. The Council apologizes, and then they say something that, in hindsight, is almost grotesque. They call the whole thing a trial, as if betrayal, isolation, and a military tribunal had been a spiritual lesson, and this is the moment the entire Star Wars story shifts. Ahsoka leaves, not in anger, but because she understands that the Order would have sacrificed her if Anakin hadn't found the truth himself. And that's exactly why she survives what comes next. Because she recognizes just in time and that loyalty in the Republic only ever flowed in one direction. Barriss Offee, how the war destroyed Jedi from the inside. Barriss Offee starts out as the perfect Jedi, calm, disciplined, compassionate, and above all, a healer, not a warrior, and that's precisely why the Clone Wars slowly destroy her from within. Barriss watches as Jedi suddenly become generals, as peacekeepers start sending soldiers into battle, as military victories become more important than compassion. But the moment that truly changes her comes on Geonosis. Barriss and Ahsoka are buried under rubble, trapped, injured, likely close to death, and outside stands Luminara Unduli, Barriss's own master. She senses that her Padawan may still be alive, but instead of doing everything to save her, she accepts her possible death with surprising speed, because Jedi have been taught to let go. No attachments, no fear of loss, no emotional dependency. For Luminara, this is wisdom. For Barriss, it feels like the Order has forgotten what ordinary grief even looks like. And maybe something begins to break inside her right there. Because Barriss starts to wonder whether the Jedi Order preaches compassion, but actually means emotional distance. Over the years, this doubt grows, the war escalates, Jedi die, planets burn, and eventually Barriss comes to believe that the Order has long since forgotten what it originally existed to do. The problem is, her solution becomes monstrous. She bombs the Jedi Temple, kills people, frames Ahsoka for it, not because she wants to become a Sith, but because she believes the Order can only understand how far it has fallen if it's forced to feel the shock. And that's what makes Barriss so tragic. She's partially right, but the pain that makes her see clearly is the same pain that makes her dangerous. Fives, the clone who was right too soon. And then something happens that should have destroyed the Republic immediately. A clone soldier discovers the truth. CT 27555555s. He finds out that every single clone carries a chip in their brain. A chip that can be activated with a single command, not just in a few soldiers. In all of them, millions of clones programmed, controllable, without their knowledge. And suddenly Fives understands something that no one wants to understand. The Republic has built an army whose free will was never fully real. He tries to report what he found to the Jedi Council, to the military, to the Chancellor. And this is where the story turns truly dark, because Chancellor Palpatine receives him personally, which should immediately seem suspicious. But Fives is just a soldier. He still believes the system will work if you just tell the truth. Shortly after, he is declared unstable, paranoid, dangerous, confused, not a hero, a problem, and that may be the worst part of all. The Republic doesn't disprove Fives. It simply isolates him long enough for no one to be listening anymore. Fives escapes. He desperately tries to reach Anakin and Rex. He has evidence, names, connections, and then he is shot before he can convince anyone. One conversation would have been enough. One Jedi who truly listened. One investigation. One moment of genuine attention. The chips could have been removed. The clones might have kept their freedom. But the Republic had grown too large to honestly question itself. And so Fives doesn't die because he was wrong. He dies because he was right too soon. Umbara, the moment the clones understand what they really are. The Battle of Umbara begins like every other mission. A dark planet, heavy casualties. A Jedi general takes command, Pong Krell. At first, the clones assume he's simply ruthlessly efficient. then the orders start to feel wrong. Frontal assaults, unnecessary losses, missions that barely make sense. Clones die by the hundreds, and Krell looks completely unmoved. To him, they are numbers, interchangeable, and then it gets worse. Krell orders one unit to attack an enemy position. The clones follow the command in the dark, in the chaos, under heavy fire, and only afterward do they realize they just shot other clones, Republic soldiers, their own brothers, because a Jedi general decided their lives were expendable. And in that moment, the clones understand something the Republic never wanted to tell them. They were created to be sacrificed, not saved, not understood, consumed. Umbara is the moment the clones stop seeing all Jedi as heroes and begin to understand that some of them had long since forgotten what compassion actually means. Kix, the last witness of a dead Republic. Kix was a medic, CT-6116, a clone who tried to save lives while the galaxy fell apart. After Five's death, Kix begins his own investigation. He follows the same trail, discovers the same truth, understands what the chips would really mean, and that's exactly what makes him dangerous. But Kix doesn't die, at least not right away. He is captured, not by the Republic, not by the Empire, by the Separatists, the enemy, because even the Separatists know what he knows, and because that information is too dangerous to let anyone have it, Kix is frozen, loaded onto a ship, transported into the void. The ship crash lands on a desert planet. All systems fail. Kix remains in stasis 50 years. And then something happens that feels almost like cosmic horror. Kix sleeps while the Republic falls, while the Jedi are wiped out, while the Empire rises and falls again. When Kix finally wakes up, everything he ever fought for is already history. The Republic no longer exists. The Jedi are gone. The clone army is forgotten. And the tragedy isn't that Kix arrives too late. The tragedy is that he was isolated from the very beginning. He was one of the few who knew the truth and survived long enough to see that no one would ever learn it. Maybe that's the real problem with the Jedi Order. Not that it was weak, but that somewhere along the way it forgot how to see people. The Jedi called themselves peacekeepers, while simultaneously serving as generals in a galactic war. And at some point, no one noticed how absurd that had become. The Republic took children and made them soldiers. It created clones and treated them like equipment. It preached peace while industrializing a war. And every time someone began to honestly question the system, that person became the problem. Ahsoka left. Barriss broke. Fives died. The clones on Umbara lost their faith, and Kix survived long enough to see that everything he had fought for was already gone. The Republic didn't fall in a single day. It fell slowly. Every time efficiency mattered more than humanity. Every time loyalty mattered more than truth. Every time people started seeing other people only as functions. Soldiers, Jedi, casualties, resources. And maybe that's the real horror at the heart of Star Wars. Palpatine didn't have to destroy the Republic. He just had to wait until it forgot why it was worth protecting in the first place.